In this series, I'm going to show you how to complete Dark Souls 3 without dying. You can also use this as a very safe and secure way to get through the game. By following this walkthrough, you'll be able to complete this game without too much stress or too much hassle. My name is Azzavhar or Azza. Now let's get into the video game training. On this episode, we're going to take out the Dancer, make our way through Lothric Castle, and then take out the Dragon Slayer armor. So there's a few things that we'll need to get in preparation for this fight. So make sure that you have some dark pine resin, also known as human pine resin. We've got 3 of those, and you can get those from the Handmaiden, the NPC just over here in the Firelink Shrine. We've also got 71,000 souls, so we probably should spend those before we go into the fight. So let's talk to the Firekeeper. At this point we have 43 dex, 14 endurance and 16 vigor. So 43 dex should be quite fine for this fight. I'm going to put a few more onto endurance and perhaps 1 or 2 onto dexterity as well. 40 dexterity should be fine here, but you can go further in if you want to. You can put more in if you want to. So I'm going to go for 16, 16 and 45. Other than that, just make sure that you've used all your undead bone shards and you've used all your Estus shards as well. So you've got maximum Estus and you've got maximum undead bone shards. Just double check that before you go into the fight. We're going to travel over to the bonfire that's closest to this fight, which is Vort. Okay, so let's head on up to the Dancer fight. This fight is a bit of a pain. I've died to this boss hundreds of times, if not 1,000 times. A lot of speedrunners will lose their runs to this, or a lot of hitless runners will also lose their run to this as well. It's a little bit safer to go up on this right hand side here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Roll past this guy. If the fight was already activated, it would start up just here as you go through the doors. We haven't activated the fight just yet. So a little bit of preparation before we go in for this. Make sure to have your dark pine resin or your human pine resin set. I would also take the sorcerer's staff off as well. We got the double swords, we got the grass crest shield, we got the assassin's set, and we got these rings. We got green blossom, and we got dark pine resin as well. Just a side note before we go into this fight, I do have a massively in-depth boss fight guide for this, so I would highly recommend checking out my Dancer guide, which is a separate video to this one. Another quick side note here, I've not mentioned this yet on this walkthrough. If you hold down on the D-pad, it will take you to the item that's the first on your quick items set, which in our case is the Estus Flask. So the Estus Flask is set here. If we were on Green Blossom, if you hold down on the D-pad, it takes you straight to Estus. So if you're in a bit of a pickle or the fight is getting a little bit spicy, just keep that in mind. If you need to go straight to the Estus, hold down on the D-pad. Okay, this fight is a little bit spicy and it's probably the one that will give you the most trouble. So just before we go into the fight, what we're going to do is get the key item. And before we trigger the fight, I'm going to go ahead and put the buffs on. That usually makes the Dancer slightly less aggressive at the start of the fight, which is good for getting in a few extra attacks. So I'm going to go ahead and use the green blossom and human pine resin, and let's go for it. Well, it actually ended up being a perfect Dancer fight. Hell yes, hell yes. So like I mentioned before, I do have a massively detailed and massively in-depth guide for that up on this YouTube channel. So I would highly recommend checking out that separate video with all the details of that fight. Okay, so grab this bonfire and rest at this bonfire. We're next going to head forward into the castle. Put the base in here and head up the ladders. Let's go. We're going to put the Sorcerer's Staff back on here because I'm going to use our old trusty spell, Spook. Just head to the side over here and just wait for this knight to get out of the way because we're going to steal that soul over there. That's worth quite a lot of souls. And once again, we're going to use Spook over in this corner. And just wait for these knights to pass us by. And if you've made it this far in the walkthrough, you've pretty much made it through most of the game so far. So the rest should be nice and smooth. Cast Spook, they're just going to walk straight on by. They've got absolutely no idea that we're here. We're going to activate this bonfire here and rest. There we go. So next we're going to grab some upgrades for the swords. So let's head on down to this garden just here. We're going to be using Spook once again in just a second. Some souls. You can use Spook just to walk straight past this guy. He's got absolutely no idea. And then we're going to roll off this elevator in just a second. There we go. And I believe this is an Estus shard. It is. So an extra flask. Make things a little bit safer on this run. Titanite chunk here for some upgrades. We're going to cast our favourite spell, Spook. Just wait here in this garden for a second for this enemy to pass us. It should create a nice pathway at some point. So we're just going to wait and there'll be like a gap that we can kind of run through. There's a certain timing, which is about now. When that enemy starts walking over there, this one starts walking to the left. You can make it through nice and clear. Once again, I would cast Spook. Grab this Titanite chunk here, roll off. There's another one here. And just wait for this enemy to pass. And like I say, if you made it this far through the walkthrough, you've made it through most of the game. So the rest should be quite smooth sailing. We've got a couple more bosses coming up. So up that elevator there and then just run forward. Cast Spook here. You can ignore that item down there. Maybe cast Spook slightly earlier as we just got shot there. Titanite chunk there, open the door. And that's the upgrade material, so you can use Bonfire Last Rested. That'll take us back to the Lothric Castle bonfire. We're going to push forward a little bit here into Lothric Castle. Grab this Titanite chunk here. If you want to, you can also head back to Firelink Shrine, as we do have 73,000 souls at this point. So if you want to head back there and spend some, you can do. But this bit is not too tricky. You can lure that person around the corner and then just go in for a sliding attack there. What you could also do with that first enemy is, if they're not making their way around the corner, you can actually just hit this wall here. And that will lure them round with the sound. And then as they're coming around the corner, you can actually just run, and then LB should take them out. Take that guy out there. Take that one out. Take the, there's two there you get, and then another one straight off the bat. So that swipe should take out two, and that swipe should take out the one there as well. Pick up this item here. Now watch out for this guy. This bit we're going to run past. It's a little bit of like a zigzag kind of pattern here. You just roll past, sprint through. You kind of do like a zag to the left, and then a zig to the right there. That skeleton may, or that hollow might do a delayed axe attack there as well. Usually try and take him out around this bonfire here, like this bonfire. Just be aware sometimes of arrows coming through this wall. For some reason, the hollows down there with the crossbows and stuff can actually shoot through this wall. So just be aware of that. If you've got low HP, then you may die. You can grab that ember there if you want to use an ember or sell it, depending on what you want to do. Just going to grab some things here, and then homeward bone back to the bonfire. So make sure that you do have homeward bones here. It's quite important because we're going to use those straight off the bat. There's a little trick here that we're going to do. We don't want to activate those dragons up there. So we're going to do like a little run up this armor here. If this breaks for whatever reason, you can bonfire away from this area and then bonfire back into this area, and the armor will reappear. You have to do like a sprint, kind of like up his legs and then over a little bit. You'll get that with a bit of practice. And then we're going to grab this here, titanite chunk on the ledge, titanite chunk here, titanite chunk here. Then we can go to, I would probably definitely recommend Shrine at this point. Definitely would recommend Shrine at this point. If you've not spent those 76,000 souls, I definitely would go back and spend those. We need some alluring skulls here. We have 5, which should be fine for this section. We only need to use probably about 2 or 3. So sell anything that you may not need. In this case, we can sell souls, souls, and souls. Keep the titanite chunks. Sell the deserter armor there, don't need that. We're going to hold off upgrading our swords at the moment, even though we can give them an upgrade, but we can actually get some more titanite chunks first to upgrade it further before the Dragon Slayer armor. If you want to, you can upgrade your swords here, but we're not going to do that just yet. We've got 101,000 souls, so just in case we lose them in this next section, I would recommend spending some. So let's see what we can get here. Our stats are pretty good so far. We've got 45 dex, 16 endurance, and 16 HP. You don't really need to go any further with dex at this point, to be fair. It's entirely up to you. If you want to go ultra safe, then just whack that all into HP. Or you could go for some endurance. I'm probably going to go for a little bit of both here. So 18, 19, and 45 should be fine at this point. Might just go 18, 18. We might need a few souls to level up the swords, so maybe hold off on just one level for now. Just keep a few with you. So on this section, like I mentioned, we're going to need the alluring skulls, so make sure to have those on. You could also get an Estus upgrade here if you wanted to. But we're going to come back to this section anyway in just a second, so I'm going to travel to Dragon Barracks. And this bit is quite fast-paced. So most important thing here is those alluring skulls. We're going to be using those in just a second. Run on through. You could also use an Estus here to heal up just to make sure. Okay, so the first skull wants to be round about there. try to place it not directly on the stairs because you need to run up them and run past. So you can place one round about there if you want to. My placement was not perfect here, so try to place the skull away from the stairway. You could also throw another one here if you wanted to. These might chase us, so I'm going to throw one over to the right. As you can see, they are chasing us, so that skull can keep them busy. Be aware of incoming firebombs in the next area because they can be lethal. Throw another one over there. Roll backwards if you need to avoid a firebomb towards that wall, and then when you get up these stairs here, you throw another one just over that banister there. We should lure those into that corner. You could heal up at this section if you want to, grab some souls. Usually being a little bit slower on this bit will make this guy buff, which is not the case in this instance. But usually if that guy buffs, that's the best move that he can do. Basically, if he buffs, it gives you a free pass to just run past. So run round, grab these ladders here. And we've got our last upgrade material here, so Titanite chunk. Once you've got that, just look down for that knight because he might have followed us over here. Ideally not, but just be careful, just look out in case he's there. We're not going to go and trigger the boss fight just yet. The boss fight is just up ahead there, but we're going to grab this first. So as this is going down, we can go to Shrine. And we're just going to get the final upgrades and preparation before we go into this fight. So sell anything that you can sell, such as the souls. We can get rid of the souls. And if you want to sell an ember, feel free to sell your embers or hold on to it if you want to.
Ashen one.
And we can upgrade the swords and Estus flasks here. So if you've got any shards, hand in your shards. And reinforce the swords here as well. So they are currently +7. They're now +8. And that last Titanite chunk that we just got there on that roof, we can press that one more time. So they're now +9. So there's only one more upgrade that these can get, and that's using the Titanite slab, which will take it to +10. We can grab one of those a little bit later. So we've got 41,000 souls at this point. So we could probably get another level up. We could also set our quick items ready for the boss. So we're going to be using pale pine resin. You would have grabbed 2 pale pine resin on your way through this route. You get those in Irithyll Dungeon. So set those. And then grab any levels up that you may be able to grab. So we've got 18, 18 and 45 at this point. All of that is relatively quite decent. I'm going to go ahead and go for endurance at this point. So 20 endurance. That should give us a few extra attacks. And then for this boss fight, the bonfire I would go to is Lothric Castle. So from here, look towards the right and we can drop off this ledge just here. We're going to go ahead and use our favourite spell. You guessed it, it's Spook. Head through and then to the left here. And this is the elevator that we triggered before, which was up near the Dragon Slayer armor. So we can run straight onto this elevator. This will take us to the boss fight. Here we go. So make sure to set your quick items and set up your character ready for this fight. We're going to be doing something like this. So Sorcerer's Staff will be off. The Assassin's Armor is fine. If you want to, if you're feeling extra spicy, you can take off the armor and you could put on Flynn's Ring, which would give you some more damage, but you would have a lot less defense. So the choice is yours, what you want to do with those rings there, but we're going to go for Something like that. Chloranthy, Lloyd's Sword Ring, Pontiff's Right Eye, and Silver Serpent Ring. The quick items that we want are Estus, Green Blossom, Pale Pine Resin, and Homeward Bone, in case things get a little bit spicy. You could also have a backup resin set if you wanted to as well. For example, Fire or Pine bundles. The 2 Pale Pine resins should be fine, but you could use those as well if you want to, in case you run out of Pale Pine resin. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. And once again, before we go into this boss fight, I do have a massively detailed and massively in-depth boss guide up on this YouTube channel for the Dragon Slayer armor as well. So I would highly recommend checking out that Dragon Slayer armor boss fight if you haven't already. So make sure to have the Grass Crest shield on your back, and we're going to have a sword in each hand here. That's quite important. We can use buffs before we enter the fight. You can choose to use Green Blossom and Pale Pine Resin before you enter, or I'm going to go ahead and use Green Blossom and then Pale Pine on the inside. Like so. We're just looking out for one specific attack in this fight. Which was that one, but he didn't follow up. Okay, the next attack will take him to his next phase. I'm actually going to try and put Pale Pine Resin on again before pushing him to his next phase, if possible. Depends on what he does. That was the time to put it on. There we go. Dragon Slayer armor. Sit down. Okay, so on that second phase of that fight, you do have to watch out for the pilgrim butterflies that will appear either side of the bridge. So just keep your eyes peeled for those, as they can shoot stuff at you, which can cause a massive amount of damage. And like I mentioned before, I do have a massively detailed and massively in-depth Dragon Slayer armor boss guide, so I would highly recommend checking that one out if you want to. In the next episode, we're going to be making our way through the Grand Archives, taking out the Twin Princes and taking out the Soul of Cinder. So make sure to hit like, subscribe and drop a comment. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Oh my good god. What? You can't poke me through a wall?